The dramatic encounter between President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine and U.S. President Donald Trump in the Oval Office was a striking departure from customary diplomatic etiquette. Although both leaders are known for their forthright manners, on this occasion the disagreements spilled out before the world's media, exposing internal strains and the fragility of the Ukrainian-American partnership. What makes the incident even more jarring is that it occurred at a moment when Ukraine's defenses remain heavily dependent on external military and financial support, much of it provided by the United States. Weeks of anticipation had preceded Zelensky's trip to Washington. Officials on both sides saw the meeting as a chance to finalize a minerals deal that might solidify a deeper economic partnership. Ukraine, with its reserves of rare earth elements, viewed this as a tangible way to repay part of the support it had received from the United States. For its part, the Trump administration regarded the agreement as a sign that Ukraine was willing to offer something concrete in return for the billions of dollars in military aid and advanced equipment that had been flowing to Kyiv. If all went smoothly, the visit was slated to conclude with a signing ceremony, a joint press conference, and an official lunch celebrating a renewed sense of unity. Contrary to expectations, the atmosphere took an unpleasant turn soon after Zelensky entered the Oval Office. As cameras recorded the leader's initial remarks, Trump emphasized that he was striving for an end to hostilities in Ukraine that would also be fair to Russia, disclaiming any alignment with Vladimir Putin while still insisting that incessant Western aid might encourage Zelensky to hold out for a complete victory. Vice President Vance, standing by, questioned Zelensky's diplomatic strategy, suggesting that the Ukrainian leader was unwilling to make concessions. Zelensky, for his part, spoke earnestly about previous attempts at peaceful resolutions, describing how Russia had violated multiple ceasefire agreements and refused to exchange prisoners, despite signing relevant accords. The conversation became intense when Zelensky challenged what he saw as an overly simplified call for immediate diplomacy, particularly since his experiences negotiating with Russia had yielded broken promises and resumed assaults on Ukrainian territory. Trump raised his voice, accusing Zelensky of gambling with World War III by refusing to accept a ceasefire arrangement on less than ideal terms. Observers perceived that Trump believed Zelensky was stalling because Ukraine's reliance on U.S. funding gave it leverage to continue fighting. Vice President Vance interceded again, questioning whether Zelensky had adequately expressed gratitude for American support. Many who watched the exchange found this to be an extraordinary reproach to deliver in front of reporters, as leaders typically avoid direct confrontation on camera. Zelensky responded that he had repeatedly thanked the United States, describing how essential the support had been from the early stages of the conflict to the present day. But Trump and Vance pressed on, insisting that the Ukrainian president needed to demonstrate visible deference if he wished to keep U.S. assistance flowing. At one point, Vance even reminded Zelensky that he had visited an ammunition plant in Pennsylvania the previous year and, in the American leadership's view, campaigned for the opposition. The press was promptly ushered out of the Oval Office as the exchange escalated. According to insiders, Trump reconvened with senior advisors, who argued about whether there remained a point in continuing the scheduled events. Some believed it was still possible to sign the minerals agreement and maintain a working partnership, but Trump, provoked by what he perceived as disrespect, decided to terminate the visit. Within an hour, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz reportedly told Zelensky and his delegation that the meeting was over, the press conference was canceled, and that they should leave. In the midst of this turmoil, Zelensky waited in a separate room, apparently hoping for a chance to salvage the situation. The abruptness with which the White House cut ties left his delegation stunned, as they had arrived in Washington expecting cordial, if not particularly warm, receptions. Instead, their departure from the White House was a rushed affair, with Zelensky striding quickly into a black SUV without making any public statement at the time. The customary lunch between the leaders, where differences might have been discreetly discussed further, never took place. Not long after, Trump took to social media, declaring that Zelensky had disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office, adding that he was free to return only when he was ready for peace. This terse declaration signaled a potential rift that could seriously jeopardize Ukraine's war effort. Although U.S. support for Ukraine has not been entirely contingent on the occupant of the White House, the president wields tremendous influence, and a decision to withhold certain weapons systems or limit financial aid could sharply alter Ukraine's ability to defend itself. Some Republicans applauded Trump's action, claiming it was time for Zelensky to acknowledge that an unconditional military strategy was unrealistic. Other officials, both American and foreign, quickly condemned the public scolding of a wartime ally. Reactions among European leaders conveyed dismay and disapproval toward the White House's stance, with many insisting that Russia remains the clear aggressor. They questioned whether equating Ukraine's predicament with Russia's motives undermined the global order that prohibits wars of conquest. Meanwhile, Democratic lawmakers in the United States pointed to the confrontation as further evidence of a president prone to impulsive decisions, even when the outcome may favor adversaries like Russia. Zelensky's own comments later that day focused on thanking American citizens and expressing hope for a continued alliance. His post on social media noted Ukraine's aspiration for a just and lasting peace, reminding readers that any viable agreement must not reward a power that invaded its neighbor. Having cancelled his next public events, Zelensky returned to the Ukrainian embassy, where, according to some close to the delegation, the mood was grim. They recognized that the planned minerals deal, once seen as a practical demonstration of Ukrainian reciprocity, might not be resurrected anytime soon. The likely impact of this diplomatic fiasco extends beyond the immediate headlines. Indeed, it puts into question the fate of U.S. assistance that Ukraine needs to hold the line against Russian aggression. Trump's assertion that the United States may withdraw support if Zelensky refuses to compromise on territorial issues suggests a new phase of uncertainty for Kyiv. This could prompt European nations to step up, but they, too, face domestic pressures and may be unable to match the scale of American largesse. For Zelensky, who has made personal appeals to multiple Western capitals, the Oval Office showdown with Trump highlights the precarious nature of his country's reliance on foreign aid. While some have argued that the Ukrainian leader should have taken a more conciliatory stance, others insist that no nation should yield to an invader's demands out of fear of losing external support. One day after the confrontation, the world continues to debate who, if anyone, emerged in a stronger position. Critics of Trump argue that the real victor is Vladimir Putin, who now sees deeper discord between Washington and Kyiv. Yet supporters of the White House claim that by pressuring Zelensky to find a quicker path to peace, Trump is sparing both countries from a protracted conflict. At present, no easy resolution is in sight, and the dynamic between the United States and Ukraine appears more fraught than ever.